Okay, so source and medium. This is going to be your other big one with dimension and metric to keep in mind. So a source is going to be the how would I put it? The platform that is sending you traffic. You can get Google Organic, you can get Google CPC, you can get Google Product Sync, which is the Merchant Center, which we'll cover later. But they're all coming from Google, but they're coming from different parts of Google. And then the medium is those different parts. So like I said, it's Google is the source, and then the medium is going to be organic, CPC, product sync. So they're all going to be slightly different because they're what you want to know is that Google is sending you lots of traffic, but you want to know which part of Google that traffic is coming from. And so, with all of that, we are going to dive into we're going to start with Google Analytics for his demo account. The main reason why I'd recommend using the just to get started is to use the Google Analytics 4 is they've got a bunch I'm just going to be showing you stuff about events and conversions that when we get to that Google set up a lot of these and so we can see how that looks like with a fully optimized account. I'll also show you what it looks like in one that we've just created and just seeing the differences of events that are being tracked out of the box versus Google, which is obviously this is their actual merchandise account. So this is the actual Google store where you can buy stuff. And so the data is real. They just make it accessible and it's got all the extra e-commerce stuff that you could see. For just looking at it, it's going to be a lot fuller with data so we can poke at it. So there's a couple things. The first thing to note is going to be the navigation on the left-hand side. So we've got home, which is going to be gives you a little snapshot, also has some things that you've recently visited as well as things you frequently visit. So this is just basically Google's way of just front end loading a bunch of stuff that they've noticed in your behavior. You've been going to these reports. And so they're just making it easy for you to get to them here on the homepage. We've got the reports tab. That's where you're going to be spending a lot of your time because that's where you're going to be pulling in bits of information, creating reports, and just seeing how different sources and mediums are doing and that kind of information. And Explore is much more of a really new part of their platform, which is it's like reports, but you can do different visualizations. So maybe you want to do a funnel, and it's like the classic one would be the e-commerce funnel, where each step you get to see where the drop off is, and so that gives you just a way to take the data and visualize it in a different way. There's some cool ones in there, but it's definitely how would I say there was a lot of analysis paralysis with this one, where you're like, okay, I've got all these tools. And then like, how do I actually use this one? So generally, I'd say when you're getting started, start with the reports. Advertising, that's going to show when you've got conversions set up, which we will cover with the Google Tag Manager portion, how to set those ones up. And what that does is in there, they're going to have attribution models. You can play with those. So attribution, just to touch on that, it is a way that you count which part of the journey, because obviously we all take multiple steps to make a conversion. So which step is the one that counts the most? And there's all kinds of different ways to do it. The analogy I really like for attribution is say you are looking for a place to eat your lunch, like you're going to try a restaurant. So you ask your coworker, and your coworker says, "Oh, I love going to the Chinese place just around the corner." And so that would be your first touch point is someone's mentioning this. Then you see a newspaper ad for their menu and they say lunch special, $10 off. And then you go open up your phone and you type in Chinese food and they have a Google ad that says like order now. You then order from them, but which point in that journey really converted you? Because all of those really matter in the end, right? You wouldn't have done it if you didn't get that recommendation from your coworker. Probably the ad in the newspaper helped. Every point of that journey matters, and you want to try and account for those parts so that you can see the whole journey. And that's the other part that is in there is that they actually do have user journeys. And so basically it goes through all those points that I just relayed. They have them as digital points where it's they saw an ad, they clicked on the ad, they didn't convert there, but then they did Google Organic, they searched for you, and then they converted. So you want to be aware of both of those points in the journey. Obviously, that's very short. It can be sometimes very short, sometimes a lot longer. And then the configure tab, that one is for, as you might imagine, configuring the events, making sure that they're set up correctly and that they're tracking properly, the conversions that come out of events. Because so events can become conversions. It's just like flipping a switch. You're not going to want to have everything, but you're as a conversion, but there's certain parts, like I mentioned, the purchase, that's definitely one you want to be tracking as a conversion. And parts like that are going to be really important. You can also configure the audiences that I touched on when we are talking about segments and deeper integrations with Google Ads. So that's where you're going to get to see building audiences and how you're going to use those audiences. That's going to be in there. And they also have something called the debug view mode. Because what it used to be is in Universal Analytics, we would just use real time pip to debug Google Analytics. Is it working?
What is debugging?
So debugging, a term that comes from software, is that you've got a bug. So there's a weird quirk in the software, and what you're trying to do is track through the steps on what led to that bug, and then you debug it, meaning that you remove the bug. I guess would be the best way.
So if your contact form isn't working, then you
Yeah.
would try to figure out why, right?
Yeah. Or if your contact form is working, and in this case with Google Analytics, it's not properly coming through in the data, then you can go into the debug view, run through those steps. And then because of that, you can then see, oh, this step didn't fire properly. Okay, I know it's this one event that I had set up and it's not working correctly.
And
So,
that's very advanced. So much later,
oh,
you'll be
yeah.
learning about that. So don't even worry about it now.
Oh, yeah. No, the configure, pretty much everything that's in the configure will be coming up later when we talk about Tag Manager and how to use it. That's more of where that really comes through, especially the debug view, because that's you need Tag Manager in order to do the debug view. So don't worry about it. We're keeping this nice and simple. I just wanted to let you guys know that's what each of these tabs does. And admin, we've already been in there when we did the first setup with Google Analytics 4, and we are accepting the signals data collection. And generally, there's not much else in there at the moment. I'll be entirely honest. We
We'll
will
be
be go.
connecting things in there at a in a different class.
Yeah, yes, we'll be covering that. The only thing in the co-working hours, I'll be going in there to show you how to filter out your own internal traffic as the business owner or the marketer so that you don't pollute the data. You do set that up in there, but most of the time, like it's very rare that I go into there. So I would say the first place to start is going to be going into the reports because this is what you're going to be looking at in Google Analytics.
Now, before you click in there, everybody needs to realize that Google Analytics 4 is really can be really overwhelming. There's a lot of buttons, a lot of levers. Your whole job in this whole class is just to start to get familiar. Phelan's going to show you the couple things you need to look at. You're not going to overly stress about this because over time, it's going to be way more comfortable as you get to know Google's products.
How do we know if we're in our GA4 or the UA? It's because it's got in the number, it will say UA dash and then the number, correct? So that's how I toggle between the two.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah.
Great
You,
question. Phelan, do you want to? Yeah.
yeah. So you can see here, just even in the demo account,
Yeah,
when you click on the name of it up here, you can switch between accounts. And
got
you
it.
can see just in this, even if they didn't name it properly, I
Got
can
it.
just see, like you said, UA dash. And so this one is GA4. And you can tell because it doesn't have that UA at the start. And the other way to tell is very quickly if you go to the admin and there's only two columns, that means you're in the GA4 because there is no view, which is part of UA, the Universal Analytics.
Yeah, I was just asking because obviously my page looks very different and very empty in comparison to this. So I was like, where
Uh,
are all those fun things?
yeah, fair. That definitely happens. That's why I was saying to start with the demo account here, just because it's going to have lots of the buttons and it's going to have more levers set up already, so you can play around with it.
You
So
don't see any numbers in your own account in the Google Analytics 4, reach out to us because it means maybe it hasn't been completely set up properly.
yeah, and we're super happy to walk through that. So yeah, if you guys are not getting any, if there's no users at all, that would be something to we should take a look at that because you should be getting some, even if it's just users. And so the report snapshot, this one where you open up, it's got a lot of graphs. Yeah, there's just a bit much for the moment. We're going to be focusing on mostly acquisition and specifically traffic acquisition. So this is a lot more pared down. This also has that graph that I was talking about where this is the dimension And then it's got its metric that it's compared against. I'm also going to, because for some reason they really like, they're not going to let me do that. Oh, yeah, they're very weird about some of the graphs. They don't let you compare anything. Okay, this one. I generally always try to go for source and medium because this one is just going to be telling you that last one was just the medium. So if it's organic or if it's CPC or referral, and I generally find that to be not very helpful. I like to see that it's Google organic, and then I can see the number of users. And they've got a bunch of these rows already set up. So we've got engagement. That's their, because Google Analytics 4 started out as an app analytics platform. And then now they've transformed it into both a website and an app analytics platform. It still has a lot of like engagement as their metric for what they are counting. And what they mean by that is, are people spending time on the screen on the website? And so this one, you can even hover over these and they do give you little definitions as well. So that's pretty helpful as well. So you can see this is the number of sessions that lasted longer than 10 seconds or had a conversion event or went to 2 or more screens. So like bunching a bunch of those things into one metric here. So important to keep that in mind. You can also see which platform drove the most conversions, and we'll go into what those conversions are. And you can also see it over time, and it breaks down. You can highlight one of the lines as well. So maybe like this one here. Okay, there's a huge spike in Google organic traffic on Friday, Saturday. And then you can go back and, oh, were we doing something specific, or go to your search console. So a lot of this is using this as a jumping off platform to finding out why things are not happening the way you want to. And that's what we're trying to do here. And
I just got
other,
to interject for 1 second. I know you love me for this. Just so you know, as a marketer, it's going to be your job to go in here and look at the information. This is not necessarily for your client. It will overwhelm them. So it's your job to crunch the information and give them the answers. This is for the SEO in you to, because SEO is all about figuring out what's going on. Is it working? Is it not working?
yeah, it's definitely the other one that we do a lot of is send the client or the boss a data studio report, which is going to be very much the snapshot, and it's going to have some numbers overall. And so what we do is we use that as also as a jumping off point, like I just talked about. So say conversion, like phone calls compared to last month were down 50%. Okay, we got to figure out why they're down. What's happening? What changed? So that you use the data studio report as a jumping off point to get into the analytics and suss out why it's happening. Okay. So the other one that's going to be really, the other two that are really important here is going to be events under engagement. So we'll also, so this one, the other thing to keep in mind over on the right hand side at the top of the graph is going to be rows per page, and you can extend that out to, I generally extend it out as far as they'll let me. And so we've some ones that are pretty straightforward: view cart, add to cart, reviewed order. This click is generally external link clicked. That's the default. So if they left the site to go to a different site, and of course, the classic purchase is here as well. And yeah, there's obviously going to be some weird ones in here.
So the click would be something like if I had an external link from, because I'm using an external website to support what I'm writing about, that would be if the person clicked on that and went out of the site.
Yeah, the use case that I read of why they did this out of the box that are tracking it is for affiliate marketers. Because generally, anytime that someone's clicking external link, they're generally going to get money if they convert. And it's also a way that affiliate marketers can say, hey, I brought you X number of traffic. Please increase my rate. So that's why out of the box, they're having that as a default setting. Yeah, and there's definitely some weird ones that are in here. Where is that one? Yeah, predicted LTV payer, which is a cool one that they set up. So that's the predicted lifetime value of a user. And so Google's running like some algorithm in the background. That one definitely is not out of the box.
So lifetime value of a user would be, say, I got a client, they stayed with me for 10 years and they spent $100 a year, right?
Yeah.
There. So 10 times 100, it's 1,000,
Yeah.
right? 10,000. Shit. Lot of zeros.
Yeah. Or if, say, you guys are the school, if they're taking multiple classes, so the average student will take 2 full courses from us. That's also, so you're taking an average of how many they are, and then what those courses that they get, and then that kind of gives like a lifetime value for an individual. Of course, this is on average. Um, and so what I'll do is I'm going to show you what it looks like with an account that's brand new with the events tab as well. So you can see here, we've already got a bunch of events, and we can see that page view, user engagement. Again, that's like if they're spending more than 10 seconds or visiting multiple pages.
Wait,
The
in the
session
events?
starts. Yeah. So you can see that. Oh, one cool thing that Google has gotten a lot better of, you can switch between accounts on the same window. So I can go between accounts and it will just send me directly into the events. So if you switch between a bunch of accounts, it'll keep you on the same spot.
Oh, you should do that. Switch to a different account.
Switch to this one, which is going to have no data. Oh, small amount of data. But yeah, you can see that I'm kept in the exact same spot, well, no matter what, as long as I'm in Google Analytics for each of them, of course. So for this one, you can see that we've got first time visit, scroll. And so again, that's 90% of the way down the page is out of the box. That's what it does. File download. So they do have some downloadables that they wanted people to take. So this is good for them. And then also the external link click. And so the other one that you're going to be spending a lot of time looking at is going to be this one under engagement called pages and screens. Again, leftover of this being for apps that they use the word screens. And so what they're going to do is they grab the page when they display it. We can see that this is the home page, the community page, contact, our eggs, our story. And so you can see how this all kind of which one is getting the most views. And normally it's going to be your home screen. So you can also see down here how many people were viewing it. Again, going back to new users, right? So you could figure out how many of the people are new users. They've definitely got a healthy amount. And then you can also see average user scrolls and their average time on page. So one thing to keep in mind also about average engagement time is that it's an average, meaning that all those people that bounced out right away, all those people are going to draw down because they're like 0.01. 1 minute average, it's actually really good because there's so many people weighing down that average that if you get a minute, that actually means that a bunch of people spent a bunch of time on the page. So that actually pushed it to a reasonable amount. So it's it may not look like very much, but it's definitely one where it can be very deceiving based on how many people just bounce out right away. Those are going to be the three that I would very strongly recommend you look at because you can start to see how people are engaging with your website and also see what are people scrolling to the lots of your pages, scrolling down to the bottom. That's going to be really important under the events tab as well. And then also with the acquisition, I would start with the user acquisition. The traffic acquisition, they don't have as much flexibility with doing, they really like doing the medium. And they either make you do source or they make you do medium. And for some reason, they don't like out of the box letting you do that, customizing that part. One other thing that Pip and I were talking about when in preparation for this class that will give you guys a kind of an idea on where to get started, what questions to start asking is going to be up in the top right hand corner. There's a couple of buttons here. So we've got the date range. Of course, this change it to any date range here, 90 days, 12 months, calendar year, and then or custom. You can also do a compare if you want to do it. I wouldn't recommend doing a compare if you've got lots of rows here because it gets really messy and very confusing very quickly. Sure. Oh, with one that's messy?
No, just that one. Turn it on.
Oh,
It's
okay.
it's a
Okay.
lot of information. So later on down the road, you will utilize this to do comparisons, but not at this point in time because it can feel overwhelming. But you can see if you look at the direct from April 21st to May 18th, they had 132 users. And then May 24th to April 20th, they had 173. So they've actually had less users in the last, what is that, 2 weeks?
Yeah, but they've had more organic searches. So that's also a good sign for them that people are Googling them. Also, organic social, which is just not, it's just an awkward sentence to say.
Can you break that down? Do they show?
Remember, they don't do source medium. They
Yeah,
do
yeah. But
source
if you went to
medium.
user acquisition,
Let me just switch to the source because that should tell us.
stuff to
Facebook,
compare.
a lot of Facebook.
Oh, look at that LM.
Yeah, yeah. And we can't do the same filtering. We used to be able to filter these so that they would all end up as facebook.com.
We will be able to again at some point, and that was actually called
Yeah.
something called regex, where you're basically grouping data together. So all the L dot Facebook and all the LM dot Facebook would all be just Facebook, because they're basically saying it's on a phone or it's on a desktop. So we can separate out that information ourselves. Out of the box, we want them to group all of the Facebook data together. So
Yeah.
that's going to come eventually.
Or there may be a way to do it in the internal, like the same place we do the internal filtering. They just don't make it very clear out of the box what is available.
The other thing though, so you see that little graphy icon up at the top right-hand side beside the pencil icon?
Yeah,
This is where you're going to start learning. If you click on this, is I called it the wizard. It's actually Google Analytics Intelligence. This is where Google's AI is trying to help business owners and users understand what's going on with their data. If you click down on basic info, oh, you went.
Oh, I just went to let me go back up.
So if you
I want to let me get back up. Sorry.
go back go back to the insights little icon, see if that works.
Yeah, okay.
So basic info, if you click down on this, so this is where I would start.
Yeah.
And so click on the how many users, right? How many users did I have last week? It'll tell you. And so this way you can start to get used to the types of questions to ask. And then eventually you'll be going into the data and figuring out this yourself. That's just an
Yeah.
easy tool to help.
Yeah.
So
Well, and
Michelle, oh, sorry.
this will definitely get you started with a lot of the questions. And then if you come up with your own questions, you can actually ask them in here as well. And as long as it's like, how many people from facebook.com did I get in the last week? Like you can ask that question in plain English. It will hopefully spit back an answer, or at least that's what they say will be able to happen.